Oh, thank you so much. This is an emotional moment for me. And words seem so futile, so feeble. I can only say that thank you for the honor of inviting me here. And oh, you're wonderful, sweet people. Thank you.
Who were the stars that built Hollywood from the ground up? From Marilyn Monroe to Clark Gable, these 20 legends didn't just act, they changed history. Their fame, love lives, and scandals shaped an era. Stick around, because you're about to relive the golden age like never before. Marilyn Monroe, the eternal blonde bombshell. Before she was the most photographed woman on Earth, she was Norma Jean Mortensen, a shy girl with a broken childhood and a dream that refused to die. In a world that often discarded vulnerable women, Marilyn Monroe became its most unforgettable face. Her breakthrough came slowly, in bit parts and pin-up shoots, but her screen presence was impossible to ignore. By the time Gentlemen Prefer Blondes and The 7-Year Itch lit up screens in the 1950s, Marilyn was more than a star. She was an obsession. Her breathy voice, playful innocence, and raw sensuality created an icon the world still can't let go of. But behind the diamonds and red lipstick was a woman who never felt truly seen. Marilyn battled anxiety, loneliness, and a longing to be taken seriously as an actress. She studied with Lee Strasberg, demanded better roles, and delivered in Some Like It Hot, a performance that remains one of Hollywood's finest comedic turns. Her personal life was a tabloid tornado. She married baseball legend Joe DiMaggio, who loved her deeply but struggled with her fame. Then came playwright Arthur Miller, a man of intellect who saw her soul but couldn't rescue it. Both marriages ended in heartbreak. Marilyn died in 1962, alone in her Brentwood home at just 36. Officially, a barbiturate overdose. Unofficially, a mystery that still fuels conspiracy and sorrow. Her death cemented her legend, but it was her fragility, her fight for respect, and her haunting vulnerability that made her eternal. And just like that, one legend led to another. Though this next one didn't wear diamonds, he wore leather, and he changed music, movies, and masculinity forever. Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll. When Elvis Presley shook his hips on live TV, the world gasped. Girls screamed, parents panicked, and a new era was born. The king of rock and roll didn't just change music, he broke America open. Born in Tupelo, Mississippi, Elvis came from almost nothing. But his voice, sultry, trembling with emotion, was a sound no one had heard before. Sun Records gave him his start, and soon songs like Heartbreak Hotel and Hound Dog were rewriting the rules of pop culture. But Elvis didn't stop at records. He stormed Hollywood, starring in over 30 films, including Jailhouse Rock and Viva Las Vegas. Though critics dismissed many of them, the box office didn't. Audiences couldn't get enough of his swagger. Off-screen, his life was as dramatic as any film. He married 21-year-old Priscilla Beaulieu in 1967, and they welcomed daughter Lisa Marie. But fame had taken its toll. Elvis struggled with addiction, isolation, and the burden of being a symbol to millions. By the 70s, his health and spirit were fading fast. He died in 1977 at Graceland, just 42 years old, but his cultural shadow still looms large. Elvis redefined celebrity and left behind a legacy as rich, tragic, and electric as any in American history. As Presley's voice faded from the stage, another rose, not louder, but softer, more refined, and infinitely elegant. The world would come to know her simply as Audrey. Audrey Hepburn, elegance personified. With a glance, a whisper, or a smile, Audrey Hepburn could steal a scene and your heart. She wasn't loud or sultry, she was delicate. She was grace in motion, and she changed everything about what a leading lady could be. Audrey's rise came in 1953's Roman Holiday, where her performance as a runaway princess won her an Oscar and the world's admiration. Her image, short bangs, wide eyes, a mix of innocence and depth, was a direct contrast to the bombshells of the era. She wasn't seductive. She was magnetic. Then came Sabrina, Funny Face, and Breakfast at Tiffany's. In that black Givenchy dress, coffee cup in hand, Audrey became the very definition of timeless fashion. But her talent ran deeper than style. Born in Belgium, she survived Nazi occupation as a child, which instilled in her both resilience and compassion. Later in life, she would trade the camera for cause, serving as a UNICEF Goodwill ambassador and traveling the world to help children in need. Her personal life was quieter. 2 marriages, both ending in divorce. 2 sons she adored, and a lifetime of quietly enduring health struggles. Audrey passed away in 1993, but her legacy continues. On magazine covers, on posters, in hearts. She proved that strength can come in soft forms, and elegance, true elegance, never fades. But not all stars lived long enough to see their legacies unfold. Some, like our next icon, burned fast and left behind ashes the world still sifts through. James Dean, the rebel icon. He only made 3 major films. He never saw his 25th birthday. And yet, James Dean became a symbol that would echo through generations. In East of Eden, Rebel Without a Cause, and Giant, Dean captured a kind of raw, searching energy, restless and misunderstood. He didn't act, he felt. Every shrug, every glare, every silence meant something. He wasn't just playing a role, he was speaking for every young person who ever felt out of place. Dean's personal life was equally layered. Rumors of bisexuality, intense method preparation, and emotional isolation added to his mystique. He was introspective and philosophical, closer to a tortured poet than a Hollywood star. Then came the car crash in 1955. His Porsche 550 Spider collided on a desert highway. He died instantly. At 24, he became immortal. James Dean didn't live long, but he lived honestly, on his own terms. And in a culture hungry for authenticity, that made him legendary. While Dean gave voice to teenage angst, our next icon carried the weight of glamour, scandal, and survival. 8 marriages, and still standing. Her name? Elizabeth Taylor. Elizabeth Taylor, violet-eyed legend. Elizabeth Taylor wasn't just famous. She was Hollywood. From child star to tabloid queen, from Oscar-winning actress to AIDS activist, her life was a whirlwind, and she lived every moment of it. She started young, breaking through in National Velvet at just 12. But she didn't stay a girl for long. By the time she starred in A Place in the Sun and Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, she had become a force, volcanic, stunning, and fiercely talented. Then came Cleopatra. The movie was a financial disaster, but it changed everything. On set, she fell for Richard Burton. Their affair, scandalous, explosive, passionate, became the most talked-about romance of the 20th century. They married, divorced, then married again. In total, Elizabeth Taylor was married 8 times, but she was more than her love life. She won 2 Academy Awards and became the first celebrity to publicly fight for HIV/AIDS awareness, long before it was popular or safe to do so. Her violet eyes were mesmerizing, but it was her strength, resilience, and refusal to be silenced that made her unforgettable. And with that, we move from diamonds and drama to smooth vocals, mob whispers, and a voice that defined a generation. Frank Sinatra, the voice of a generation. Frank Sinatra wasn't just a singer. He was a mood, a movement. A man who knew how to command a room with one note and a cigarette dangling from his fingers. From Hoboken to Hollywood, he went from scrawny kid crooner to the most powerful entertainer in the world. In the 1940s, Sinatra drove Bobby Soxer teens into a frenzy. But just as quickly as he rose, he fell. His career stalled, his marriage crumbled, and people wrote him off. Then came From Here to Eternity. It wasn't just a movie, It was a comeback. He won an Oscar, revived his career, and proved the world wrong. Frank didn't stop there. He built the Rat Pack with Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr., a crew of cool that ruled Las Vegas and redefined American masculinity. His friendships with politicians and rumored mob ties gave him an aura of danger, while his voice remained velvet smooth on hits like My Way and Fly Me to the Moon. But Sinatra's life offstage was messy. He married 4 times, most famously to Ava Gardner, a romance as passionate as it was volatile. He had enemies and demons, but he also had loyalty and heart. He passed away in 1998, but his songs still play in dimly lit lounges and black and white memories. Sinatra didn't just sing for a generation, he was the generation. And as his voice faded, another woman was leaving the silver screen for a palace and a crown. Grace Kelly, Hollywood royalty. Grace Kelly was the embodiment of class. Cool, ethereal, and poised. She didn't just act. She floated through films like a dream you hoped wouldn't end. But her story wasn't just about stardom. It was about walking away from it at the height of her fame. In the 1950s, Grace starred in Alfred Hitchcock's finest works, Rear Window, Dial M for Murder, and To Catch a Thief. She had the kind of screen presence that didn't need to shout. It was quiet strength, subtle beauty, and sharp intelligence all rolled into one. Then, in 1956, she shocked the world. She left Hollywood to marry Prince Rainier III of Monaco. The Oscar-winning actress became a real-life princess. Her fairy tales seemed too perfect to be real. But the palace came with restrictions. Grace gave up acting. She devoted herself to family, diplomacy, and charity. Behind palace walls, she missed the freedom of the camera, the thrill of the stage. Still, she smiled. Tragedy struck in 1982. Grace suffered a stroke while driving, crashed her car, and died the next day. She was just 52, but her legend only grew. Grace Kelly didn't need a long filmography to earn immortality. She was the kind of star who turned every glance into a masterpiece. And while Grace carried elegance like a crown, our next icon carried grit like a badge. He was tough, dry-witted, and unforgettable. He was Bogey, Humphrey Bogart, the quintessential tough guy. When people think of the golden age of Hollywood, Humphrey Bogart is the face that comes to mind. Cigarette smoke curling around a bitter smile, eyes that said too much without saying a word. He wasn't classically handsome, but he didn't need to be. Bogey was real. Before he became a legend, Bogart spent years in small roles. Then came The Maltese Falcon, then Casablanca, and with that, he became the hard-boiled hero of every noir fan's dream. Cynical, bruised, but still capable of love. But his greatest role may have been off-screen, his romance with Lauren Bacall. They met on the set of To Have and Have Not. She was 19, he was 44. Their chemistry was electric, and their marriage became one of Hollywood's most iconic. Together, they laughed, raised kids, and supported one another's careers. Through war, fame, and scandal, Bogart remained grounded. He wasn't flashy. He didn't need to be. Bogey died of esophageal cancer in 1957. He was only 57 years old. But to this day, his final line in Casablanca echoes through cinema. "Here's looking at you, kid." And while Bogart gave us grit, our next icon gave us heartbreak, power, and a voice the world still isn't done mourning. Judy Garland, the tragic songbird. Judy Garland wasn't just Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz. She was the girl who sang to the world while breaking inside. Her voice soared, but her soul often stumbled. She started in vaudeville, born into showbiz before she could even spell it. MGM shaped her into a star, but also fed her pills, controlled her body, and manipulated her mind. She was just 16 when she filmed Oz, but the yellow brick road came with a price. Judy struggled with addiction, body image, and crippling anxiety. Still, She gave unforgettable performances in Meet Me in St. Louis, Easter Parade, and later, the comeback of her life, A Star is Born. Her voice was a miracle. Listen to her sing Over the Rainbow, and you'll hear not just hope, but longing, pain, and truth. She married 5 times and gave birth to another legend, Liza Minnelli. But Judy could never quite outrun her shadows. She died in London in 1969, just 47 years old. Her death was a loss. Her legacy, eternal. Judy Garland didn't just entertain, she exposed every raw nerve of being human. And as her voice faded into the clouds, another man stepped onto the stage, cool as ice, funny as hell, and smoother than anyone before or since. Cary Grant, the suave leading man. Cary Grant wasn't born in a tuxedo, but you'd be forgiven for thinking he was. With his rich accent, effortless charm, and perfectly timed wit, he became the definition of suave. Born Archibald Leach in England, he reinvented himself in Hollywood. What he lacked in classical training, he made up for with screen presence. In films like Bringing Up Baby, North by Northwest, and Charade, Cary played the romantic lead, the con man, the action hero, sometimes all at once. But behind the charm was a man shaped by hardship. He grew up poor, with a troubled childhood that left deep emotional scars. He battled depression, and later in life, experimented with LSD and guided therapy sessions to heal. He was married 5 times, yet many close to him said he never found the kind of love he portrayed so effortlessly on screen. Rumors about his sexuality and long-term friendship with actor Randolph Scott still linger, wrapped in mystery. Cary retired at the top, never chasing the last laugh or last hurrah. He left the screen with his image intact, cool, composed, eternal. He was the gentleman rogue, the Hollywood enigma. And next, we meet a woman who shattered every expectation and changed television forever. Lucille Ball, the queen of comedy. Lucille Ball didn't just break the mold, she shattered it, laughed over the pieces, and then built a television empire from the ground up. She wasn't just America's favorite redhead, she was a pioneer, a risk-taker, and a woman who proved that being funny and powerful could go hand in hand. Before she became Lucy, she was a struggling model and B-movie actress. For years, she played the pretty girl in forgettable films. But when she teamed up with Cuban bandleader Desi Arnaz on and off the screen, everything changed. I Love Lucy debuted in 1951 and became a cultural phenomenon. It wasn't just a sitcom, it was a revolution. It brought real-life pregnancy to prime time, introduced the idea of a live audience, and showcased a real interracial marriage on American television. Lucille's physical comedy was unmatched. Her expressions, her timing, her fearlessness. She made chaos look graceful. Behind the scenes, it wasn't always laughter. Her marriage to Desi was passionate but tumultuous. They divorced in 1960. But Lucille didn't crumble. She leveled up. She bought Desi out of Desilu Productions and became the first woman to head a major Hollywood studio. She greenlit Star Trek and Mission, Impossible, shaping the future while never forgetting the funny. Lucille Ball died in 1989, but her legacy still makes us laugh and think. She opened the door for every woman in entertainment who refused to be just the sidekick. And while Lucy reigned over TV, the big screen was ruled by a brooding, complicated genius, one who changed acting forever. Marlon Brando, the method actor. There was acting before Marlon Brando, and then there was acting after him. He didn't perform roles, he became them. He didn't just deliver lines, he transformed into raw, living emotion right before your eyes. Brando's breakthrough came in A Streetcar Named Desire as the volatile Stanley Kowalski, a performance so explosive it felt like he'd torn open the screen. From there, he stunned audiences in On the Waterfront, delivering the iconic line, "I could have been a contender." He wasn't just a star, he was a force. But Brando's career wasn't a smooth ride. He clashed with directors, walked off sets, and disappeared from Hollywood when it no longer interested him. Then, in 1972, came The Godfather. As Don Vito Corleone, Brando returned to glory, redefining what aging, power, and quiet menace looked like on screen. His personal life was chaotic. He fathered many children, faced heartbreak, family tragedy, and years of reclusion. He spoke out for Native American rights and turned down his Oscar in protest, sending Sachin Littlefeather to deliver a statement that shook the industry. Brando died in 2004, complicated and unapologetic, but his shadow remains, etched into every serious actor who ever tried to find truth in a role. And while Brando brought storms, the next legend brought sun-kissed charm and European flair, blending old Hollywood elegance with international fire. Sophia Loren, Italian screen siren. Sophia Loren didn't just arrive in Hollywood, she erupted onto the world stage. She was beauty, brains, and boldness in one breathtaking package. And behind those smoldering eyes was a story of grit, survival, and undeniable talent. Born into poverty in war-torn Italy, Sophia didn't come from the world of glamour. She fought her way into it. Her first big roles came in Italian films, but it wasn't long before Hollywood took notice. By the late 1950s, she was starring opposite the biggest American leading men: Cary Grant, Clark Gable, and Gregory Peck. But it wasn't just her beauty that captivated audiences. In 1961, she won the Academy Award for Two Women, the first major Oscar given for a performance in a foreign-language film. It was raw, heartbreaking, and proved she was more than just a pretty face. Sophia married producer Carlo Ponti and stayed with him for over 40 years, a rarity in her industry. She balanced family life with international fame, never losing the fire that made her special. Even today, she remains a presence in fashion, film, and interviews. With every graceful word, she reminds us that elegance and strength can go hand in hand. And just as she danced between cultures, our next legend danced across screens, light on his feet, heavy in his legacy. Fred Astaire, the dance maestro. Fred Astaire made dancing look effortless. He didn't just move, he floated, spun, glided. Every step was perfect, every tap a symphony. He was rhythm in human form. Astaire's career began on the vaudeville stage with his sister Adele, but once he moved into film, there was no turning back. He paired with Ginger Rogers in 10 classic films, including Top Hat and Swing Time. Their chemistry was legendary, not just romantic, but musical. They moved as one. Fred wasn't just a dancer, he was a pioneer. He demanded full body shots in dance numbers, refused to use stunt doubles, and insisted on rehearsing until every frame was flawless. Off-screen, he was shy, meticulous, and modest. He never saw himself as a sex symbol, but audiences did. Later in life, he took on dramatic roles, proving that even without tap shoes, he could still command the screen. He was offered a spot on the moon with NASA, but declined. Still, he soared higher than most humans ever do. Astaire passed in 1987, but his work lives on, timeless, joyful, a reminder of when dance was storytelling. And while Fred brought harmony, our next genius spoke without a word, yet said more than most ever could. Charlie Chaplin, the silent film genius. Before there was sound, before there were stars with voices, there was Charlie Chaplin, and he spoke louder than anyone. His creation, The Tramp, with the bowler hat, cane, and shuffle, became the most recognizable figure on Earth. Born into poverty in London, Chaplin knew hardship from the start. His father was absent, his mother institutionalized. But he turned that pain into empathy, and that empathy into comedy. He used laughter to tell the truth. His films, City Lights, Modern Times, The Gold Rush, weren't just funny. They were profound. They tackled poverty, capitalism, loneliness, and love. He didn't need dialogue to break your heart or lift your spirit. But as America's politics turned paranoid during the Red Scare, Chaplin's outspokenness made him a target. Accused of being a communist, he was effectively exiled from the US and lived much of his later life in Switzerland. In 1972, the Academy brought him back and gave him an honorary Oscar. The standing ovation lasted over 12 minutes. Charlie Chaplin died in 1977, but his influence is stitched into the DNA of every film, every comedian, every underdog story told on screen. From silent tears to loud applause, Chaplin proved one thing. Sometimes, the quietest voices leave the loudest echoes. Bette Davis, the fierce performer. Bette Davis didn't play nice, and she didn't need to. With sharp eyes and sharper lines, she broke through Hollywood's golden age with a ferocity that turned her into a legend. She wasn't the sweetheart. She wasn't the bombshell. She was something even more powerful. A woman who dared to be difficult. Her breakout roles in Of Human Bondage and Jezebel introduced the world to a new kind of leading lady, complicated, ruthless, magnetic. And in All About Eve, she gave us Margot Channing, the aging actress fighting off time with every ounce of her pride and wit. Off-screen, Bette was just as fiery. She demanded better scripts. She sued Warner Brothers for creative freedom. She fought for women's roles in an industry that wanted them decorative, not dominant. Her feud with Joan Crawford became infamous. Two titans battling for respect, for roles, for legacy. Their tension exploded in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, where real-life bitterness became cinematic brilliance. Bette was nominated for the Academy Award 10 times, winning twice. But her real achievement was staying in control of her craft. She aged on screen with defiance, never hiding behind soft filters or fake smiles. When Bette Davis passed in 1989, she left behind more than iconic roles. She left behind a blueprint for every actress who refuses to be anyone but herself. And while Bette challenged Hollywood's beauty standards, the next icon defined them, only to be trapped by them, both on screen and off. Rita Hayworth, the love goddess. To millions, Rita Hayworth was the dream. Red lips, flowing hair, hips that swayed like jazz. In Gilda, when she peeled off one glove to music, it wasn't just seductive, it was immortal. But behind that perfect image was a woman constantly at war with what Hollywood made her into. Born Margarita Cancino, she began her career as a dark-haired dancer. Studio executives bleached her hair, raised her hairline, changed her name, and changed her fate. By the 1940s, she was the love goddess, a title that followed her long after the lights dimmed. Her fame skyrocketed, but her personal life was turbulent. She married 5 times, including to Prince Ali Khan, which made her Hollywood royalty of a different kind. But the truth is, Rita never found peace. "They go to bed with Gilda," she once said, "but they wake up with me." Rita's later years were marked by heartbreak and illness. She faded from the spotlight and became one of the first public faces of Alzheimer's, long before the world truly understood it. She passed away in 1987, no longer the goddess, just the woman beneath it all. But her screen image remains, luminous, electric, eternal. And as Rita's image faded from the spotlight, another leading man was forced to hide in it, his truth buried behind studio walls and a smile meant to charm the world. Rock Hudson, the hidden heartthrob. Rock Hudson was everything a 1950s movie star was supposed to be. Tall, handsome, romantic, masculine. On screen, he was the perfect man. Off screen, he was forced to live a lie. With hits like Pillow Talk and Magnificent Obsession, Hudson became one of Hollywood's top box office draws. He starred opposite Doris Day in classic romantic comedies, embodying the fantasy every woman was told to want. But Rock Hudson was gay, a truth that could have ended his career in a heartbeat during that era. The studio system protected his secret. Fake relationships, staged photos, and silence kept up the illusion. It was a painful, lonely trade-off for fame. In the early 1980s, Rock was diagnosed with AIDS. When he publicly revealed it in 1985, the world changed overnight. He was the first major celebrity to do so. And his announcement forced the media and the public to finally confront the truth of the crisis. His death that same year became a turning point in AIDS awareness. Suddenly, it had a face, a voice. A victim who had once been the embodiment of health and desirability. Rock Hudson's courage helped shift a culture. He died not just a movie star, but a symbol of truth, sacrifice, and change. And now we turn to a woman whose name conjures fear, admiration, and endless controversy. A woman who demanded perfection and left behind a legacy both feared and revered. Joan Crawford, the ambitious star. Joan Crawford didn't just want to be famous. She wanted to be immortal. And in many ways, she got her wish. With a career that stretched from the silent era into the 1970s, she was the definition of ambition, sharp-edged, glamorous, and unrelenting. She rose from poverty and clawed her way into the spotlight with hard work and harder looks. Films like Grand Hotel, Mildred Pierce, and Possessed showed off her dramatic strength. Her eyes could melt or destroy, depending on the scene, and often both in the same film. Joan adopted several children, hoping to create the perfect image of a mother and star. But after her death, her daughter Christina wrote Mommy Dearest, a tell-all that painted Crawford as abusive, cold, and obsessed with control. The book, and later the film, fractured her image forever. Whether you believe the memoir or not, one thing is certain. Joan Crawford was complicated. Her life was an endless performance, off-screen and on. She lived for the camera and feared irrelevance more than death. She passed in 1977, alone but still iconic. She was the woman who once said, "I never go to bed with makeup on. I want to look beautiful for myself." That was Joan, relentless, legendary. And now, to close this story, we look at the man they called the King of Hollywood, the ultimate leading man, the legend who kissed Vivian Leigh and walked away into the smoke. Clark Gable, the King of Hollywood. If Hollywood had a crown, Clark Gable wore it. Square jaw, commanding voice, and a grin that could level a room. He was the man every woman wanted, and every man wanted to be. And yet, like so many kings, he carried burdens the screen never showed. He started in silent films, but once talkies arrived, Gable's star exploded. Roles in It Happened One Night, Mutiny on the Bounty, and of course, Gone with the Wind made him untouchable. As Rhett Butler, he delivered one of the most famous lines in film history. "Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn." Off-screen, Gable lived hard and loved hard. His most famous romance was with actress Carole Lombard. They were married just 3 years when she died in a plane crash, a tragedy that broke him. He joined the U.S. Army Air Forces in her honor and flew missions during World War II. Though he remarried, he never quite recovered. In his later years, the industry changed, and Gable aged out of his romantic lead days. But he never stopped working. He died in 1960, just after filming The Misfits opposite Marilyn Monroe. In a way, it was fitting. Two giants of Hollywood sharing the screen one last time before disappearing into legend. Clark Gable wasn't just a star. He was the star. And when he left the screen, an era left with him.